Welcome to Navigating Your Retirement. I'm your co-host, Tony Shore. I'm here with our host, the man with the plan, Travis Chance. Travis, great to see you again. Today, I know we're continuing our topic from last week. This is a good one, the retirement spending trap. And this is part 2. Can't wait to dig into that. But first, I always have to find out, how have you been? Any exciting adventures? Any contractor projects going on at the house?
Sweet heavenly Jesus. Um, you know, I know our listeners want to hear positive news this morning.
Sure.
So maybe we don't go to the
Okay.
contractor.
Okay. Yeah. I
Um,
should try to. Sorry, I didn't mean to
yeah,
go down that path.
I've
We'll keep it
never,
positive
I'm
today.
sure I know I'm not alone because I hear the same stories that my clients tell me about, their mishaps with hiring contractors and,
Oh yeah.
et cetera. I'm Tony, I'm starting with my third contractor to try to get my finished repairs done on my house.
Wow.
Number 3.
Number 3. You're
Number
chewing through them.
Not intentionally. I mean,
I
remember
know.
the
It's not your fault.
first guy literally blew me off for like 3 months. And you guys out there listening, take a second. You'll sympathize. You'll be like, man, that's terrible. But I know exactly what he's saying. First guy comes out, says he's going to start to work, supposed to be reputable. That's not the case at all now. Probably 30 years ago, not now. He legitimately blew me off for 3 months, started the job, got it inspected because it just looked like absolute, what. And come to find out, basically everything that he did failed inspection. So it's like,
Wow.
oh, and by the way, I didn't get a building permit. Oh, that's great start. So then you fire that guy, and now you hire the second guy, and he works for about a month, and that was from May to June.
Sure.
And since then, like, he will send one guy, and he will work by himself for like 4 or 5 hours, get absolutely nothing done, and then he goes home. And that has been going on for the last 7 or 8 months. So I'm now hiring my third contractor. And the crazy thing is, I can't even get in touch with the second contractor to fire him because for the last 2 months, I have sent a half a dozen text messages, called a half a dozen times, left voicemails, gotten absolutely no response. I can honestly say this, Tony. I run my business the opposite of what everybody else does. So when someone calls us, I will have to give our staff credit where credit's due. Our staff picks up the phone. We answer the phone. We're here. We solve problems. That is not the case today for a lot of business owners and a lot of contractors.
That's crazy. Well, contractors have notorious reputation, and the whole reason I asked,
and it's well deserved for the most part. It's well deserved.
Yeah, that's why there's all sorts of jokes about there aren't any contractors in heaven. And I mean, they go on and on. But the whole reason I asked is I thought this was long done, and you'd say, "Oh, Tony, that's great."
No. I will give you this one real quick, and I know these guys, our listeners, I don't want to hear my woes, but so if anybody knows me, I'm sort of insistent whenever, especially when they're doing something they shouldn't do, or they're kind of standing around doing nothing.
Yep.
So it was New Year's Eve. I gave the staff the day off work. Yep. I'm supposed to. The contractor decided he wanted to work New Year's Eve, right? So he sends one guy, and this guy literally 5 hours goes by in any given day. He gets nothing done. In 5 hours, we got more done because I literally was on his heels. I was like, all right, do you need me to go cut that? I was running a saw. I was caulking. I was nailing. I was like, what are you about to do? Okay, let me go do that. You go do this. And Tony, in 5 hours, I got more done than he did in a week. So that might actually be the only thing that's about to push us across the finish line in the inside.
Well, hopefully the new guy, the third contractor, will come through for you.
Well, it's a very low bar. I mean, my gosh,
Yeah.
all he's got to do is show up, make
And
right
actually
angles,
accomplish something.
and get something accomplished, and he's going to automatically be a head and shoulders above.
And send more than one person.
Yeah, to basically be the running, because you're not running a saw inside the house, so you have to measure, and then you're like, okay, I need this piece this long, and you walk all the way out the house, you go and you cut the piece, and then you come all the way back in. That takes time. So I know why it takes so much time is because the guy didn't have any help. But he's the sub. He's not the general. The general is just not giving him what he needs. So
right.
But anyway, we don't need to go any further.
It's a good analogy
this morning, Tony. You wound me up.
I know.
And if anybody wants to hear the names of these contractors, if you're in our local listening area, give me a call. I will gladly tell you all the details so that you don't make the same mistakes I did.
Well, sure. I mean, that's I know you. I mean, your whole goal is to help people in the community,
Absolutely.
and that's a huge help because you don't want to find yourself in that situation. And
Nope.
You're here to save money, save people money.
We're here to save people's retirements.
Yes, and part of that is not getting caught in a spending trap or a contractor,
which is hiring the wrong contractor, and the money just keeps going out. Nothing really keeps.
See how we fit that together, Travis? It's all on track. It's
it was
all
planned.
on track. So the retirement spending trap. Refresh our memories. What have we been talking about, and what are we going to cover on the show today?
Sure. So the topic of last week was, Tony, the retirement spending trap that sometimes retirees get caught in. It comes from a lot of different areas, right? And the ultimate principle is this: if you plan in retirement for a certain level of expenses or spending and what have you, and you begin to eclipse that and you go over that, in some years and some periods, it's not going to be an issue because the markets are going to be outperforming. You're going to be able to take these one-off expenses or maybe turn the income up just a bit. But if you get into the habit of that, it can really start to really have very detrimental impact on your retirement and your retirement income. And we talked last week about the different phases and the things that we go through that kind of lead us down the path. And, we started with the honeymoon phase, and I'm not going to go through every detail of it. You guys can go back to part 1 from last week, but
sure.
The retirement honeymoon phase where there's no alarm clock and all of a sudden you have more free time and, things start to come up that maybe you didn't have time for in the past. And, then that leads to, well, okay, we have enough money. We'll be fine right now. And, you don't think about things like sequence of returns risk, meaning everybody's happy when the market, like I just said before, goes up. But when it goes down and you're taking these really heavy distributions, I mean, no matter how hard you pull on the stick of the airplane, so to speak, it will never most times pick up and the nose. It will be very difficult to get it out of that steep dive. It'll stay in that kind of that decline as you go. And that really could lead into locking in losses and, reducing your base for your assets to recover, right? Because the market's gonna correct. It always does. Now it could be a long correction. It could be a short correction. The average bear market, it's about a year. I mean, and not saying that, doesn't happen shorter than that. It does. Like, for instance, what 2025 last year, we didn't, like, we tapped it, but we didn't break through it like, like the Hulk breaking through a wall. I mean, we didn't break through the bear market, but we were around 20% peak to trough in a very short period of time. Now, as soon as the taco trade happened, which Tony, I'm learning the acronyms as we go, like our listeners, which is Trump always chickens out when it comes to the tariffs, and he started backing up. Well, then what happened? Then the market picked back up.
Yep.
Literally, that was about a 3-month V, right? Everybody was thinking it was going to be this long check mark where he goes down and just flattens out, but it actually was a big V and it came back.
Yeah.
You go back to 2022 though, and 2022 was pretty pronounced, right? I mean,
a big down year.
About 11 months.
Yeah, so, that was our last down year that we had.
Correct.
Yeah.
So things are going to happen. We don't have a way to predict how long the market's going to be in a bear market, but what we can do is we can plan for those types of things ahead of time.
Yep.
And then the last thing from last week, and then we'll get started into this week, is sometimes the psychology of retirement kind of overrides, I don't want to say our common sense, but it kind of overrides our plan, because we sometimes get into this, well, honey, we earned it, we saved all our lives, what are we doing? We don't want to leave the kids, well, we don't want to leave the kids $2 million, or we don't want to leave the kids whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but Tony, here's the thing. In the very first part of retirement, it's very difficult for you to say, I'm going to leave the kids X, because there's a lot of things that can happen in a 20, 30-year vacation, right? I mean, watch Chevy Chase vacation. There's a lot of things can happen in 20, 30 minutes. But in a 25, 30-year vacation, we have to pick a target to shoot at. And yes, we want to give ourselves some flexibility, some ups and downs. But at the end of the day, it's something that, especially in the very first 5 years, 10 years of retirement, that makes a huge impact. Michael Fink, David Blanchett, a lot of scholars have written just piece after piece after piece, Wade Pfau, on the impact of taking too much money too early and not accounting for volatility. So that was kind of the last week, if you will, gist of the show. And this week we're going to talk about, that in more depth. This week, Tony, I want to start with the fact that, when we underestimate, and we kind of closed the show briefly with this last week, if you underestimate your expenses, it starts to destabilize your income, and it does it very quietly. It doesn't happen. It's not loud. It's not something that you can identify because it's this loud boom that happens, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, it gets our attention. That's not how that works. All of a sudden you start to, like a bad foundation on your house, you start to get stress cracks, and you start to have things come to your attention that start off small, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a minute, we need to address this. So I don't think retirees, nobody does this intentionally, right? I mean, if you look at what you have when you retire, and I always ask clients whenever they come in and we're talking to prospects is, what do you think it's going to take for you to live comfortably per month? Don't try to eat the elephant. Look at it from a monthly basis and then work your way out. Yeah. So if your monthly cash flow is X, a lot of times expenses don't disappear in retirement. They just shift, because we talked about the fact that a lot of people underestimate, and they think, okay, I'm making and spending $10,000 a month right now. My husband and wife, two income family, net income is 10 grand a month, right? After 401k, expenses, state taxes, federal, all the whole thing, it's 10,000 a month. Well, then, you say, well, how much is it going to take for you to live comfortably? And they say, oh, well, 5,000 a month. I doubt that. Now, not saying you're wrong, but Tony, could you and your wife go to living off of 5,000 a month if you have been living and used to living off 10,000, and that number has been getting bigger and bigger as you approach retirement? Could you automatically drop 50% of your net cash flow and still be good with it?
No. I mean, that,
or would Miss Shore be good with it?
No, I wouldn't be good with it. That's, we all have to watch out for what you're talking about is lifestyle creep too, a little bit there. And you need to nip that in the bud. But at the same time, you can't take a 50% pay cut in retirement and expect to be able to live comfortably.
Just if nothing else, Tony, think of the shifts, right? And they're not seismic shifts. They're small at first. Yep. If you think about like lifestyle, let's just talk lifestyle first. Lifestyle expenses, if you're not commuting as much, that could often lead to what? To more travel. That could be more hobbies. We joke about all of a sudden, we're going to retire and learn how to play golf and get on the senior tour. I mean, let's face it, we're going to pick up these hobbies. These are things that are going to fill our time. You're going to probably be eating out more. let's face it. As we get older, and if all of a sudden say you and your family and your children, you've been taking 6 out to dinner, and it's all of a sudden just you and the spouse, because maybe the kids are already gone to college or out of college and they have their families. Do you think that if given the choice, if you're like, hey, do we want to cook and do dishes tonight, or do we just want to go out to dinner? Probably going to be a lot more dinners, right? A lot more dinners out. That's going to come with a higher cost. Higher utility bills. If you're going to be home more, what do you think? Instead of the AC, right? If you have one of these automatic thermostats, the Nest or whatever, all of a sudden, for years, let's say you and your spouse, y'all have been out of the house for the 8 to 10 hours during the day. So maybe the AC's been bumped up to 75 or 78. And now if you're home half of that time, guess what? You're not going to sit in there and be uncomfortable. All of a sudden, AC temperature goes down, AC runs more. What are you going to have more of? Power bill. So, I mean, just because we don't see them today does not mean that expenses are not going to shift over to other areas. It's like load bearing walls in a house. You take one out, the pressure is going to find the next load bearing spot, right? It's not a lot of times just going to go away. Another big thing, and actually this was on the news this morning because United Healthcare took a real big hit because of Medicare reimbursements not being flat for this year. We sometimes underestimate the healthcare cost because you can delay them, but you can't avoid them, right? But when you get to retirement, you're going to be you're a lot of times you are going to be potentially in a better position. I'm not going to say that's always the case because I've seen some where it's not. But if you've been paying your group plan premium, and you had your co-pays and your co-insurance and deductibles and all that stuff, well, guess what? When you get to Medicare age, if you get on Medicare A and B, and then you get a supplement, which that's honestly, that's my opinion. That's my preference. I try to be both ways, fair both ways on here, but I'm going to tell you straight up, I'm a bigger fan of Medicare supplements than Medicare Advantage. And if you like to call me, I'll tell you why. But rising premiums for Medicare, that's something that it's going to happen, right? When every time we get a Social Security raise, almost, we get what, Tony? An increase in what? Your Medicare premium. Right? Yep. It's chained. It's going to go up with it. Then you have, let's say, for instance, you do have either Medicare Advantage, Medicare Supplement. A lot of times these premiums, they're going to go up, right? It's not going to be a static cost. You're going to start at one end and it's going to end probably a good bit higher than where you began. Prescription drug costs. Tony, my goodness, how high are prescription drugs in our country right now?
Oh, crazy.
They are astronomical. I was talking to a client the other day. He said that his drugs, thank goodness, his plan, and he's got great coverage. His plan covers it, but his prescription pills were $17,000 a month.
Yep. Crazy.
Holy shnikes.
Who can afford that?
Well, I mean, if he didn't have the coverage he did, I don't think he could. Nobody could.
No.
And, then you have things that we also don't associate with retirement, but, unless you get them all yanked before you go into retirement, what are you going to have? You got to keep that $1 million smile, right, Tony? Yeah, there it is. There it is. So you have dental, you got vision here. I mean,
healthcare costs
are going over and over and over all these extra expenses. But we need to identify that there needs to be something worked in the budget, not just like I talked about earlier. I know it seems like forever ago, Tony, but 10,000, if that was your original amount, and 5,000 is what you think you need to spend, how much of that do you think that person has worked in for those additional healthcare costs, the dental costs, the vision costs? None.
No.
Right?
And people think once they're on Medicare, it covers it. They don't realize they still have premiums. They
dental
still have
vision is not covered
copays
under Medicare Advantage or supplements.
Right. There's a lot that just isn't covered at all. Plus, there's still premiums, still copays, and still deductibles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, And there's things, hearing, vision, dental, long-term care isn't covered by Medicare.
Well, let me
So
make a correction because I think I made a blanket statement. I want to apologize. Medicare Advantage actually does have some plans that will give you some level of
sure,
small.
if you have additional coverage like an Advantage plan
Right,
or a
right. But
supplemental plan.
Medicare in general does not cover dental unless it is a medical emergency, like the tooth in your mouth is about to give you a heart attack and it's got to be removed because you're going to die otherwise. I'm being a little bit over the top, but you get my point. It's got to be justified. It can't just be, well, I need whitening because I want my teeth to get rid of some of that coffee stain over the years. That doesn't work. That's cosmetic. That's not necessarily required.
Right.
The last part, and I'm gonna button up this last part on the inflation and the impact over decades. For years and years and years, we've talked about the 2% target for dividend or for inflation, 2% inflation target for the Fed. And that was kept extremely low by their quantitative easing, quantitative tightening over about a 12 to 15 year period. And now they're not doing that. And that's the reason you saw, literally you've been pushing tension down on a spring. Well, all of a sudden they quit pushing down. What happens? Spring pushes back. So that's the reason inflation has popped up. And that's been something that's really wreaked havoc because you had people that were planning on, let's say, just 5 or 6 years ago on having a certain number in mind. Well, that number, because of inflation that got out of control, even though it's come down a little bit now, inflation got out of control and things that you thought were going to cost X are now X times 2. And you really were thinking 5,000 was your target for 10 or 15 years. And then because of 2020 until now, it might be 8,000. It might be 7,000. Well, the question is, has your portfolio kept up or do you have it constructed to be able to absorb that additional 20 or 30 or 40% increase that you're going to need in expenses? And a lot of times the answer is no. I think it's unfortunate because most people are like, oh, well, market's going up, so eventually it'll just work itself out. Folks, eventually it'll work itself out. Hope. These are not strategies. These are choices that you're making, and maybe they work, maybe they don't. I don't like to plan anything on a maybe, Tony. Yeah. Maybe will get you hurt. Maybe will cause you to run out of money before you run out of breath. And that is not what I think a quality retirement is and should be all about.
Right. You can't, I mean, you can hope for the best, but you have to prepare for the worst and be prepared, not hope, right?
Well, we talk about it. Never underestimate your ability to overestimate your ability.
Right. That is so true.
Sometimes we need a second opinion. We don't just need to go out just because you got a toothache, go out in the garage, pull a pair of pliers out of the old tackle box and, decide to yank. Sometimes you need to go to a dentist to get a second opinion.
Right. Right. Well, and you've covered a lot. And I think that, one of the key points is a spending trap people fall into in retirement is not planning ahead for those costs like healthcare. And, we've talked at length about the others, taxes, healthcare. These are all things, that is the spending trap of retirement. And those are just two of the things.
So folks, I'm trying to give this to you in very short pieces to help you digest. And the last two parts, I know there's been a lot of, oh, you know what moments, right? Like, oh, I didn't think about that.
Right.
And that's the purpose, because if we don't identify what the problems are or what some of the things are, what are some of the things that are leading us down this path, then it's very difficult to address the problem. It's very difficult to treat the disease. Right. So the last 2 weeks, that's what we focused on. Next week, what we're going to talk about is how do we overcome all this? What are the ways that we can think differently or maybe plan a bit differently so that we can overcome all of these challenges or do as much as we possibly can to mitigate as much of this risk as humanly possible? There is no perfect plan. There are good plans that are executed. perfection something we strive for. It's not something that can be attained, but you can find the perfect solution for you and for your situation. But you have to plan. And that's what we're going to talk about next week is what are some of the things that we can do to help you plan for your situation. And I think that's going to have a big impact on you and your family going forward. So, Tony, last thing I want to mention before we wrap up, once again, the first classes are going to be February 10th and 17th coming up in our Savannah location down at Savannah Tech. We're going to have a series of classes over the next 3 months. Folks, if you've been waiting, don't wait anymore. If you've been thinking about planning for retirement, but you didn't know where to start, maybe you just didn't know what questions to ask. That's why you need to give us a call. If for no other reason, get some information on these courses, get some education. You will not regret actually putting that time in. It will pay dividends for you, your family, and your legacy.
Okay. What's the number they can call to get more information on how to register and what time? That
absolutely. 877-269-0839. That's 877-269-0839.
Yeah. And Travis, I know you love to hear from people. So pick up the phone, give Travis and his team there a call. I think that's great. Set up a no charge, no obligation consultation or get information on one of these informational classes. It's purely educational. It's not a sales pitch. There are no timeshares being sold. It is financial education, and we all need that. Thank you so much, Travis. Great show today talking about the retirement spending trap. Once again, that does it for today's episode of Navigating Your Retirement with our host, Travis Chance.